Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name's Emma Lefebvre, and today we're going to be drawing some simple leaves using watercolor pencils. Honestly, these things feel magical at times. So let's jump in and get started. Okay friends, so today we are going to be creating some autumn leaves using watercolor pencils. So I have my Karst woodless watercolor pencils with me. If you have watercolor pencils that are a different brand, they will work just the same, but there's something about watercolor pencils that I'm really loving lately, the magic of them when you start rendering them out, which is why I wanted to use them for this tutorial. It's really fun and super easy, but you can also get other fun textures with the pencils. So I wanted to use that today. I have a sketchbook here and it's 100% cotton paper, but it's smooth. So when you're using watercolor pencils, I actually suggest using a smooth, maybe even a hot press paper. This sketchbook isn't a brand name sketchbook or anything like that, but it is 100% cotton and it's on the smoother side. So I always suggest using a smooth paper. It just tends to have smoother lines rather than a cold pressed textured paper. So get yourself a smooth watercolor paper, even something like, a simple, cheap Artist Loft or even, Canson XL, they're on the smoother side. Those will work perfectly fine. And then you're going to want a smaller brush. So I have a smaller size 2 round brush here, water, paper towel, and we're ready to go. So I heard that people are liking the short format of tutorials. So I decided to do just one kind of sprig of leaves to make it on the shorter side. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to grab some fall colors. Grab what other colors you want to use for this. I'm going to use some yellows, some oranges, browns, reds, maybe a little bit of green. We can throw an olive green in there and let's do it. Okay, so first I'm going to take just a medium brown and I'm going to do this kind of just stem, and I want it kind of lumpy and jagged-ish looking. So you know what I mean. Anyway, okay, I can speak really well today. I apologize in advance. Then I'm going to do the outline of my leaves. So I want a bunch of leaves coming off of this little branch. So I'm going to have one here, and I'm going to do it where they're kind of jagged, like they're starting to almost crumble on the stem. So you want these little uneven lines. You don't want them to be perfect. And I left a line for the center down there. Then I'm going to do another stem here. And I'm going to do a leaf here. So again, try and make it kind of jagged. I'm going to have another leaf coming off of this one. Like that. Okay. Let's do another bigger stem this way. Have another leaf here. You can even have it folding if you want. I'm going to have one kind of coming down here. And I think just drawing that center line first kind of helps you with the direction of your leaves. You can even just have like a little branch here. Maybe there was a leaf there before and it fell off. Okay, let's do another one. Here, jagged leaf, another one here, like that. And then let's do one here. I'm gonna try and have this one folded. So I'm gonna go, I just kind of did this curve and then I'm gonna kind of just have it pointing down. And it kind of comes back up right in the middle here. And then I'm just gonna have it folding. It's not like a completely folded leaf, but it looks a little kind of wonky, which I want. Okay, so now I'm actually going to take my brown and I'm going to thicken mostly the bottom of the stems. If you want to take that original stem and just make it a little bit thicker, you can. But then these little stems, I'm just making them a little bit thicker where they meet the other branch part. Like that, like that. This one is not really a folded leaf, is it? I'm gonna have a little branch kind of coming off of that one. thicker there. Maybe a little one here too. Okay. Then I'm going to grab my darker brown and I'm just going to go and darken up kind of like one side, just so you have a couple different browns within this branch. Okay, like that. Now I want to fill in my leaves. So I want them mostly like yellowy orange with a tint of brown. So I'm going to start filling them in lightly with yellow. You don't want to use too much. I'm just doing a light kind of scribble on them. Not using too much pigment. Like that. Then I'm going to take my lighter orange and I'm going to go kind of around the edge, maybe up the middle a bit. I love working with watercolor pencils, which is funny because it's something I never really loved before in the past. I found them kind of annoying, just like where you'd have to draw and then kind of paint them, like render them out. But the more I use them, the more I just find, like I was saying before, like the magic in them. Because when you start drawing with them, it kind of looks like, meh, this is okay. But once you start using the water and rendering them out, there's just like this magic that happens where it turns it into paint and they're super vibrant and colorful. And you're just like, how did that happen? So I'm really enjoying. Okay, this is not really a folded leaf, but I should do a tutorial on a folded leaf because that is not it. Okay, so there is the orange. I'm not pressing down very hard because I don't want a ton of pigment on there. It actually goes a long way when you just use a little. Then I'm going to take my darker orange. I'm just going to bring it down to kind of like the base of the leaves. And the thing with this is that you just got to try a bunch of different things just to see what works. Because when you lay down all these colors, you don't know exactly how vibrant it's going to be or what it's going to look like when you start rendering it out. It's kind of like a guessing game. Unless you've done this a million times and you've really got a hang of your watercolor pencils, you might not know exactly what it looks like. Okay, then I'm going to go back with my brown because I do want a little bit of brown in this. So I'm going to add some brown towards more of the top, kind of like where they would start to crumble a little bit, maybe a bit more on the centers. And remember that you can add more paint after, and I probably will. I'll show you how. Just want a little bit more brown towards the tips, like they're starting to curl and fall off almost. But if it doesn't work out the way you were hoping the first time, you can always wait for it to dry and add more paint, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so there we go. Let's start rendering out and seeing this magic happen. All right, so I have my size 2, making it wet. Now, if you watched my tutorial on how to use watercolor pencils before, you always start kind of at the, the lightest color on the leaf. So I'm gonna start in the middle. See that magic with the yellow? Because I don't want to lose the yellow. So I'm starting to render out the yellow. Then I'm gonna start touching like the orange and the center of the brown and bringing it around, okay? Because if you start rendering it out at the brown, you might lose some of that bright yellow, okay? And so I have some of the brown on my brush, and what I like to do is while it's still wet, I kind of like to go back and tap it a little bit just to give the leaves a little bit of, not texture, but just like a little bit of something. Okay, again, start with the yellow, a little bit more water. Then move it into the orange. Bring it around the sides. And then start touching the brown. Now, if you find that your brown is not dark enough, while it's still wet, what you can do, grab your pencil tip, grab your brush, and you can use it as a paint. And this is still wet, so it's going to kind of bleed just a little bit. You can add some of that paint just from using the tip of your brush and the tip of the pencil. And just kind of drop it in there. If you found that you didn't add enough brown or whatever you like. Or if you just want to add a little bit of texture to it, just by adding some dots, you can have that right there and handy for you. Okay. And this is basically it. This is all you have to do. Just render them all out. Little circular motions to kind of lift up that paint, so you don't have too much of the texture of the pencil unless you want that. Just adding a little bit more brown while it's still wet. Okay. But like, look how beautiful the color is. It's crazy how vibrant it gets once you start using the water. So I'm going to finish rendering just these leaves out, and then we'll move on to the stems in a little bit more detail. Okay, so there they are. They're all rendered out. Now I'm just going to go over the stems. So I'm just taking a little bit of water and just blending that light and dark brown into the stems. And I might go a little bit into the leaves just to have it connect a bit up the vein of the leaf. Like that. Some of those are still wet, so you can always go back over it after. Like that. Then with the stem, even though it's still wet, what I like doing is just grabbing the dark brown while it's still wet, because it kind of draws a bit darker and gives you a bit more texture. I'm just going to add a little bit more darkness to it. So I wouldn't recommend going into the leaves right with the pencil, because it does make it look darker and it's a little bit chunkier. But for the stem, I kind of like that texture. So while the stem's still wet, I'm just adding a bit more of the darkness on the kind of like the bark, like that. Okay, so there you go. You could always leave it like that. You don't have to, obviously. You can add more. If you want to, you know, have a little bit more texture or something, you can always re-wet the leaves. Grab more color. If you find, oops, that it wasn't enough, maybe a little bit of red. And do like little dots. So you can do the wet on wet technique. I'm going to grab a little bit of green. Okay, you can do the wet on wet technique with the pencils. I just wouldn't recommend using the pencil tip just because it comes out a little bit chunkier. Like, I don't know if you can see that. It doesn't give you the same kind of soft blends that it does when you just go with a wet paintbrush and then picking it up from the tip of the pencil. I'm gonna grab a little bit more orange because you can get these really beautiful soft blends this way. A little bit more brown. But it's just so fun to use. And I love painting leaves because they don't have to be these perfect things. You know, you can make muddy colors, you can make mistakes, you can have holes in them, and they end up looking beautiful. So once they're dry, I would suggest taking a little bit more brown and just adding a little bit of more sharper lines to the centers of some of the leaves. Like that. These ones are wet, so I can't really do that right now to those ones, but these ones are kind of dry. And honestly, that's about it. So much fun to do, so relaxing to do, and it's fairly easy. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on all my other platforms for tons more content. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.